Welcome. This video is presented to you by Exams Vidhai. Exams Vidhai is a non-profit initiative by the students of IIITDM Kancheepuram to give free coaching and resources to students preparing for national level competitive exams like the NTSE and NMMS. This video will deal in detail about the structural organization of animals. The following are the contents of this video. So in this chapter, you will understand the structural morphology and anatomy of the invertebrate by taking an example of the leech, and a vertebrate by taking the example of a rabbit. The Indian cattle leech, scientific name Hirudinaria granulosa, taxonomic position phylum Annelida, class Hirudinea, order Nanthodelida, genus Hirudinaria, species Granulosa. Coming to its habitat and habit, they are generally found in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. They inhabit the freshwater ponds, lakes, swamps, and slow streams. They are ectoparasitic and sanguivorous in nature. So ectoparasites basically are animals that live outside the host and feeds off them. And sanguivorous are animals that depend solely on blood for their survival. Talking about the external morphology of leeches, shape and size, the body of leech is soft, vermiform and elongated. It becomes ribbon-shaped when extended and almost cylindrical when contracted. The coloration, the dorsal surface is olive green in color, while the ventral surface is orange-yellow in color. They are metamerically segmented. The body of the leech is divided into 33 segments. The segments are arranged one behind the other, and each segment is superficially subdivided into rings or annuli. A temporary clitellum is also formed on the segments 9 to 11, which is meant to produce a cocoon during the breeding season. Leeches also have receptors. On the dorsal side, there are 5 pairs of eyes on the first 5 segments. There are annular receptors and segmental receptors. So annular receptors are those that are located in each annulus, and the segmental receptors are those that are located on the first annulus of each segment. As you can see, the leech also has suckers. The sucker that is located at the anterior end is called the anterior sucker or the oral sucker, which is ventral in position, occupying the first 5 segments, while the posterior sucker is formed by the fusion of the last 7 segments. So the anterior sucker is majorly, it helps in feeding, while the posterior and the anterior sucker together help in locomotion and attachment. So talking about the external apertures, we have the mouth, which is located in the middle of the anterior sucker. It's triradiate. Then we have the anus, which opens on the mid-dorsal side of the 26th. So the body of the leech is divided into 6 regions. We have the cephalic region, which is from the 1st to the 5th segment, preclitellar region from the 6th to the 8th segment, clitellar region from the 9th to the 11th segment, middle region from the 12th to the 22nd segment, caudal region from the 23rd to the 26th segment, and the posterior sucker from the 27th to the 33rd segment. So talking about the locomotion in leeches, we have 2 types of movements, the looping movements and the swimming movements. So the looping movements is also known as the crawling movement because this type of movement is brought about by the contraction and relaxation of muscles. And the 2 suckers also serve for attachment during the movement on the substratum, while the swimming movement is an active movement and it is performed by undulating movements in water. Coming to the digestive system includes long alimentary canal and the digestive glands. The alimentary canal of the leech is a straight tube which runs from the mouth to the anus. The mouth, as we know, is triradiate and is located in the middle of the anterior sucker. The mouth now leads into a small cavity called the buccal cavity, and the wall of the buccal cavity bears 3 jaws with a single row of minute teeth. So these jaws now also have papillae which bear the openings of the salivary glands. The buccal cavity then opens into what is known as the pharynx, around which we have the salivary glands. The secretion of salivary glands, as you all know, is saliva, but this contains an important secretion called hirudin. Hirudin is something which prevents the coagulation of blood. Now the pharynx then it opens into the crop via the esophagus, and crop is the largest portion of the alimentary canal. It is also divided into a series of 10 chambers, and these chambers in turn communicate with one another through circular apertures surrounded by sphincters. Then what you see here is the crop diverticula. The crop diverticula is nothing but a pair of lateral backwardly directed ceca which arises as a blind outgrowth from each chamber. And the function of the crop as well as the crop diverticula is basically to store large amounts of blood which can be slowly digested later based on the energy requirement of the leech. Now the crop opens into the stomach, which then leads into the intestine, and the intestine finally opens into the rectum, and the rectum opens to the exterior by the anus. So this completes the structural organization of the digestive system. Now, food, feeding, and digestion. Basically, the ingested food is stored in the crop chambers and its diverticula, as we saw earlier. And the blood is passed from the crop to the stomach, and digestion takes place in the stomach by the action of a proteolytic enzyme. Then the undigested food is then stored in the rectum and ingested through the anus. Coming to the respiratory system, the respiration takes place through skin in a leech, and the skin is maintained moist for this purpose by the secretion of mucus, which also prevents it from drying. Now, what happens is there's a dense network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries, and they contain the hemocoelic fluid, which extend in between the cells of the epidermis. So, the exchange of respiratory gases takes place by diffusion in a leech. Oxygen is dissolved in water and it diffuses through the skin into the hemocoelic fluid, while carbon dioxide diffuses out of the hemocoelic fluid. So, this is the mechanism of respiration in a leech. Coming to the circulatory system, it is important to remember that there are no true blood vessels, and instead we have something called the hemocoelic channels, which are present. So there are like blood vessels are replaced by these channels, and these channels are canals which are filled with blood-like fluid. We have four channels which are connected posteriorly in the 26th segment, and out of these four, two lateral channels are very important, which lie on either side of the alimentary canal, which serve as the heart and have inner valves. As you can see here, we have the esophagus, which is surrounded by the lateral channels, which form the heart. Then we have the nervous system. So the nervous system or the central nervous system of the leech consists of a nerve ring and a paired ventral nerve cord. So the nerve ring surrounds the pharynx and is formed by three components. The suprapharyngeal ganglion, which represents the brain, and then we have the circumpharyngeal connective and subpharyngeal ganglion. The subpharyngeal ganglion lies below the pharynx and is formed by the fusion of four pairs of ganglia. This completes the nervous system. Then we have the excretory system, and we have structures, small structures. So now coming to the reproductive system, leeches are hermaphrodites. What it implies is basically it contains both male and female reproductive organs within the same animal. So coming to the male part of the reproductive system, there are 11 pairs of testes, one pair in each segment from 12 to the 22nd segments. They are in the form of spherical sacs called testis sacs. From each testis, a short duct called the vas efferens arises, which joins with the vas deferens. The vas deferens then becomes convoluted to form the epididymis. The epididymis then leads into a short ejaculatory duct. The ejaculatory duct on both sides join to form the genital atrium. This atrium then consists of two regions. We have the coiled prostate glands and the pineal sac consisting of the penis that opens through the male genital pore. Coming to the female part of the reproductive system, it consists of ovaries, oviducts, and vagina. There's a single pair of ovary in the 11th segment on the ventral side. So from each ovary runs a short oviduct, and the oviducts from both sides join together to form a common oviduct. The common oviduct then opens into a pear-shaped vagina, which lies ventrally in the posterior part of the 11th segment. Then we have development. Basically, internal fertilization takes place in leeches. This is followed by cocoon formation, and the cocoon is also known as egg case, which is formed around the 9th, 10th, and 11th segments. The development is direct and proceeds inside the cocoon. And each cocoon contains 1 to 24 embryos. The young leech, once it comes out, it resembles the adult. So this completes the structural organization in leech. Moving on, we'll be dealing with the structural organization in rabbit, which is an example of a vertebrate. So the rabbit, basically the scientific name is Orectolagus cuniculus. Taxonomic position, phylum is Chordata, subphylum Vertebrata, class Mammalia, order Lagomorpha, genus Orectolagus, and species Cuniculus. Then we have the external morphology. The body of the rabbit is divisible into head, neck, trunk, and tail. And hairs, claw, and glands are derived from the integument. Integument is nothing but the skin which covers the body of the rabbit. Rabbits are basically coelomate animals. Coelom is nothing but body cavity. Okay, so the body of a rabbit is divided into two cavities. We have the upper thoracic cavity. Coming to the digestive system in rabbits, it's basically very similar to that of humans, and it includes the alimentary canal and the associated digestive glands. So the mouth in the rabbit is a transverse slit, which is bounded by the upper and lower lips. It here also leads into the buccal cavity, and the floor of the buccal cavity is occupied by a muscular tongue, and it also has jaws which bears teeth. Now the teeth here are diphyodont and heterodont dentition. Diphyodont basically refers to the existence of two sets of teeth in the life of an animal. You have both the temporary set of teeth and the permanent set of teeth. And heterodont dentition basically refers to the presence of different types of teeth, like you have the incisors, canines, premolars, molars. And here, if you see between the incisors and the premolars, there's a region called the diastema. It is important because it helps in the mastication and chewing of food in herbivorous animals. So, moving on, the buccal cavity leads into the esophagus through the pharynx, and the esophagus opens into the stomach, followed by small intestine. Here, the most important thing is a structure called the cecum because it is a junction between the small intestine and the large intestine, and it contains bacteria which helps in the digestion of cellulose. Now, the large intestine contains colon and rectum, so the rectum finally opens to the exterior via the anus. Now, coming to the digestive glands, we have the salivary glands, gastric glands, liver, pancreas, and intestinal glands. And the secretion of these glands are important because they help in the digestion of food in the alimentary canal. So, this completes the digestive system of the rabbit. Then we have the respiratory system, which consists of a pair of lungs, which are covered by a double membranous pleura. Now, the atmospheric air passes through the external nostril, the nasal passages into the pharynx. From the pharynx, it passes through the glottis into the windpipe, and the glottis contains a structure called the epiglottis, whose function is to solely prevent the entry of food into the windpipe. Now, the anterior part of the windpipe is enlarged to form the larynx or the voice box, and the larynx leads into the trachea or the windpipe. Now, the tracheal walls are supported by rings of the cartilage which help in the free passage of air. And the trachea divides into two structures called the bronchi, the right and the left, which on entering the lungs further divides into numerous bronchioles which terminate in the alveoli, which helps in the exchange of gases. So the respiratory events consist of inspiration, which is breathing in, and expiration, which is breathing out. So, which allows the exchange of gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide. Here, we need to note that inspiration is an active process while expiration is a passive process. Now, the circulatory system, it is formed of blood vessels, and heart. The heart is placed between the lungs in the thoracic cavity and is enclosed by a pericardium, which is also a double-layered membrane. The heart in a rabbit is also four-chambered, and it contains two auricles and two ventricles. So the auricles are separated by an interauricular septum, and the ventricles are separated by interventricular septum. The right auricle, as we know, opens into the right ventricle via the auricular-ventricular aperture, which is guarded by tricuspid valve on the right side, and on the left side it is guarded by the bicuspid or the mitral valve. And the opening of the pulmonary artery and the aorta are guarded by semilunar valves. Now, as we know, the right auricle receives deoxygenated blood, and the left auricle receives oxygenated blood. Respectively, they are passed into the ventricles, and from the right ventricle arises the pulmonary trunk, which carries the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. And from the left ventricle, we have the aorta, which supplies oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. Then we have the central nervous system, which consists of brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system is formed by 12 pairs of cranial nerves and 37 pairs of spinal nerves. And the autonomic nervous system comprises of sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. The brain of the rabbit is situated in a cranial cavity and covered by three membranes called the outer dura mater, inner pia mater, and the middle arachnoid membrane. And the brain is divided into forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain, similar to that in humans. The forebrain consists of a pair of olfactory lobes, cerebral hemisphere, and diencephalon. And it is connected, that is, the two hemispheres of the forebrain are connected by the corpus callosum. The midbrain includes the optic lobules, and the hindbrain consists of cerebellum, pons, and medulla oblongata. So this completes the nervous system. Talking about the urogenital system, the reproductive system and the excretory system form the urogenital system. The excretory system mainly consists of kidneys, ureters, and the urinary bladder. Basically, kidneys are bean-shaped and they are located in the abdominal cavity. They contain numerous nephrons, which form the excretory product, which is urea. From the kidneys, as you can see here, so this completes the chapter Structural Organization in Animals. Thank you for attending. Do check the description box below for extra questions and lecture notes for each chapter. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and comment. Thank you.